it's Reiki, but not as you know it.
Welcome, traveler. You step into the tavern. It's an alluring and enchanting place. And you find a spot by the window where the fading light casts shadows and prisms through the old stained glass panes. You see bits of sky in the clear panels where the sun is quickly setting, and you witness the magic of dusk. With its soft glowing light from the sky where the sun has fallen below the horizon, refracting and scattering the sun's rays from the atmosphere. You turn your attention back inward. Here, sitting by the fire and warming yourself, determined to release yourself from the sometimes icy events of the day that try to hook you into those moments again, but you shrug them off. Resting deeper by the fire as the cold winds outside blow all around. It's good to be inside. You look around and see others within the tavern. Some are chatting, some silent, and you think about your day, and maybe a little with a bit of melancholy, your life. Looking around the tavern, you start wondering about everyone's stories. You know one thing for sure, we've all been born, and we all know at some point we will die. You let this thought sink in. Death. There is no escape. Isn't it interesting how we can think on death as a means to an end? But what if we had the ability to sculpt our exploration of this thing we call life in a way that gives us so much more than a start and finish? What if you embrace all you are, including all you are yet to discover? There is an infinite space to travel, where your birth is anchored, and your death is a cosmic amount of possibilities, because no space exists where death can be found. The sounds of the tavern slowly fade from your hearing, and you reflect on what it's like to go beyond the state of space and time, the non-physical experience of who you are. For there is no space in the unknown, no time, no physicality. You feel a bit surprised at your thoughts, asking yourself, what spellbinding tipple have I drunk and now lies empty before me? You chuckle and you shrug it off and look up through the tavern windows and see the night sky littered with stars. A profound thought pops into your mind, and with a feeling of surprise mingled with admiration, you gaze with wonder the vastness before you. For each star represents bits and pieces of all you are. One by one, they shine brightly towards you, as if trying to get your attention. In your childlike wonder, you find yourself focusing on one, taking in its reflecting and shimmering colors, creating images of what can be. You focus on one. This holographic experience is one you can work with for every circumstance and situation, having all the necessary bits and pieces you wish to create. You are amazed at what you see and feel. You sense a change, altered what was unknown into the known. Very slowly, you begin to hear the tavern noises coming back into your hearing. You look away from the window and see people sitting in their seats, some chatting quietly, whilst others having a grand debate. You wonder if anything has changed. You look around, taking everything in, and then to the flames of the fire. And as you feel the warmth of these flames, you know who you are and what you've experienced. And you feel a very deep transformation. Calming your mind, you realize and you know your life has been changed. Hello.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
Well, we almost said that right in sync. I'm well. How are you?
I tried to get in a sync. I haven't been able to do it for a long, long time. It would have to be a really big sync for me to fit into it.
Nah.
I decided that rather than trying to fit into the sync, I would cross an ocean instead this week. So that's been good fun.
Aha. Aha.
But before we get into our adventures this week, what is that you are drinking?
Cornelia. I, again, did not need to ask. She knew for some reason, she knew not only what I needed, but what would really hit the spot. And it's called a frozen Dell.
Oh, okay.
And it is very frozen, and so I'm already freezing. I will need to sit by the fire, so we may have to swap seats.
Is it like a slushie?
Sort of, kind of. It's very sweet.
Ooh.
And it's very lemony.
Ooh.
Yes.
How refreshing.
And I'm freezing because of it. I don't know if you eat it or if you slurp it, but maybe a combination of both.
Is it that when you drink it, is it that sort of cold that is everywhere inside of you and also outside of you?
Well, yes, amazingly. You know, you initially get the internal cold, freezing brain freeze, and then you feel it on the outside of yourself, which is very trippy.
I know that experience. I've had that several times. It wasn't from drinking a frozen Dell, but I've had that experience.
Why am I not surprised? So what's your tipple?
This is a very strange tipple. It's, as you can see, it's in a goblet, but it's called a temporal salad for some strange reason.
Oh, I always worry when you say salad because I think kale, and I know.
Yeah, I know that's what I think. I think Cornelia did it on purpose. She called it a salad just to
trip you up.
But it's like a melange of time. So every time I take a sip, I feel like I'm at a different time in my life and a different time period in history. It's very strange.
Are you having flashbacks? Like, what's going on?
Flashbacks, flash forwards, flash adjacents.
Wow. I'm jealous. I want that one.
I think it's called being unhinged.
Ah, I resemble that comment on occasion.
I think that's a much better name than a temporal salad. Just the unhinged.
The unhinged. I kind of like that. I like that better than the salad thing.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Well, we'll have a word with Cornelia, see if she can change the name of this particular concoction.
Yeah, good luck on that one.
She'll say unhinged isn't a drink, it's a state of mind.
That's right. That's right.
So, we've been off this week across the oceans to the northern lands.
Yes, we have. And what an adventure. And it's good to be by the fire right now.
Absolutely.
And it's good to think about what we've encountered.
Oh, let's dive in. Not literally, because it's a bit cold, but
no, please.
Metaphorically dive in front of the fire.
That's right.
Drinking our unhinged frozen downs.
There we go. Oh, that's perfect.
I'm interested to know, how did you find going back to the northern lands, across the Northern Ocean? And
well, it's funny when I revisit places, I always, unfortunately, second guess myself, saying, you didn't retain anything, you didn't implement anything, all those action things like that I'm breaking away from, but they still crop up and they raise their head. But it was interesting to kind of gather an inventory of what I think I know, and then second guess that, of course. But then deep down really feel like, okay, no, this rings true regardless of what the internal dialogue is saying. This rings true. And as I revisited various places, I realized, like, in some things, and I think I've mentioned this before, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I find myself realizing I'm in autopilot a lot.
Mm.
And that is what is giving me the illusion that I don't know what is going on, or I'm not seeing the change.
Yes.
And so when I revisit, it's like, oh, no. Don't be silly. So it kind of feels good in one respect. And then the flip side is, but there's so much more.
It's extraordinary with these journeys that we go on. We tend to, particularly when we're using some form of media to get to a place, whether that be a certain amount of knowledge or learning, or whether that be, in the case of one therapy, a realm beyond, we have this tendency to fix things in the physical world. And I often see these journeys that we take as being like a trapeze. So as you fly through using the trapezes from one to another, you're having to judge where that trapeze is, where it's swinging, and where you will be when you let go of one trapeze and jump to the next. So it's a constant balancing act and a constant judgment of where is that going to be, so I can grab hold of it in midair.
Right.
And when we apply our usual media interactions with a fixed thing, if you start grabbing for where a fixed position in the air, you're going to miss the trapeze. And so what we tend to do is, when we reach for that trapeze and we catch it on the journey, it feels like we've never been there before, like we've forgotten it all, like it's all there. But that's because the last time we did it, we were doing something different.
Yes.
Every time we make that journey across and we go from trapeze to trapeze to trapeze, we're doing a different journey. So we have never been there before.
Right.
And so it's very interesting you were saying about, immediately the logical brain kicks in, practical things. I didn't retain any of this. I haven't. And that is that logical fixed brain saying this should be here and it's not. Why
Right.
is it not here? Because it's the first time you've done it. Same web page, same
Yes.
media, completely different experience behind it.
Right. Right. You're essentially not the same person you were. And expansion does those kinds of things to you.
Absolutely, yes.
It's very trippy.
I now have this vision of you like Tarzan flying from rope to rope, making
Um,
that call.
it's a, it, it's ironic that you mentioned that because my brother had a nickname for me when I was a child, and it was not Jane, it was not Tarzan, it was Monkey.
Okay.
So that's what popped into my head. I thought, oh, okay, going back there, huh?
So now I'm seeing a monkey flying through the trees,
Yep.
grabbing, from one to another, but the monkey has your hair.
Yes. Must have my hair. But monkeys are pretty agile, so I'll take it.
Fantastic. Oh, wonderful.
But in all seriousness, you're right. You anticipate the grab,
Yeah,
but you don't hold yourself rigid. You have to be flexible.
absolutely.
Because if we become too fixed with rigid expectations or rigid, it's got to happen right now, it's got to happen right there, and this is how it's going to happen, you're gonna slip.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah,
Whereas if you trust the process, when you're fully immersed, it's like being in water.
absolutely.
You can the fluidity of it
Yes. Yeah,
makes it ease. There's
yeah,
ease with it. That doesn't mean you're
absolutely.
not going to be surprised, because you will be.
Absolutely, yes. But particularly when we're looking at karmic regression therapy and we're dealing with time addiction. So
Right.
the very sort of foundation of karmic regression is this addiction to time that we have, where we contextualize everything in our lives through different time frames,
Mhm.
past, present, future. And this experience of going to the northern lands is very much about unfixing us from that addiction.
Right.
And when you're traveling in terms of these trapezes from one to another, it doesn't matter what's happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. It's just in that moment.
Right.
Your mind and your body are moving absolutely in reaction to the moment itself,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where that next trapeze is. You're not thinking about the one after that or the one after that, just the next one.
Right.
And you're preempting where that is going to be. You're looking at where it is and where it's going to be. So you're constantly in that moment of free fall, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what this foundational experience is doing. It's unfixing you from the past and the future and this time addiction to place you in free fall, uh,
Right.
in time non-specific, shall we say.
Right.
And that is the starting point of our journey through karmic regression, where we begin to unfix what is fixed.
Right. Right. And it's a process. It's not something that happens with a flip of a switch, because we all will fall back to the anchors. All of us do, regardless of where you are. But it is important to remember that it's the moment, like you're saying,
Yeah.
it's the now, where we get ourselves off a schedule, get ourselves off of expectations of this is my life at where it's at, and this is where I should be in my life at this point. That's tough to break. But the interesting thing, and actually I think the enjoyable part of breaking that time addiction is the liberation and freedom you feel. Wow, I can pick and choose. whatever. There is such a freedom to know that
fascinating how much we define ourselves through time. It's one of the first things that we learn when we become conscious and aware of our experience of life as very young children. We're taught about birthdays. And particularly when we're young, age becomes something that's really important. We're 5 and 3/4. We're 5 and 9/10. You know, these fractionated ages that we have. When we get older, we're just, you know, that age, or even that decade. You know,
right.
my 50s. There you go. So it just becomes more and more vague as you get older. But it's a fundamental indoctrination into how we define ourselves. We define ourselves through age.
Yes.
And it's interesting how when you get older, there is this sense of, and you hear a lot of older people say it, I still feel 18. In my head, I'm still 18. My body doesn't agree,
right?
But in my head, I'm 18 years old. And it's this weird shift of perspective that happens where we're so defined by age, yet our mind is still somewhere else, or still yearns to be somewhere else.
Right.
As soon as we take ourselves out of that context and stop defining ourselves as age and as an age, we change the narrative and we change the perspective. And the more that we can step away from being time specific and this addictive quality that we have towards time, the more we completely see things differently and stop seeing those old narratives, those old experiences of linear time from past to present to future. And that's where the magic of KRT starts, because suddenly time is not this distant thing that just hauls us along from birth to death. It is something that can be explored in every moment and is truly infinite in its experience. When we have infinite time, when we're not being time specific, suddenly space becomes infinite as well. Because we measure space through time, how long it takes for something to get from here to there. So immediately, if you think about going to the shops, you have a time in your head that says
Right.
that's how long it's going to take me to get there. So immediately that space becomes defined by how long it takes you to get there with a certain mode of transport. This is how long it takes me to walk. This is how long it takes me to
Right.
drive. This is how long it takes me to go by horse and cart.
Right. I was
As
thinking
would
my broom, but
or your broom. Yeah, absolutely. There's your broom. I mean, your broom or the horse and cart would work here in Roman nose.
it releases that apprehension of I need to get to this point, or I have a timetable, or I have a schedule, this crazy stuff that so many of us can get caught up in. And obviously it's detrimental to your well-being. So having these tools in KRT specifically, we learn to break those patterns.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love in terms of when we reach the northern lands and we start to work more with hollow KRT and
Hmm.
VKRT. So we have these very different perspectives of time in these environments. And in hollow KRT, for example, our birth experience and our death adventure, they act as 2 points that interact holographically to create the present moment.
Hmm.
So we're literally flipping the narrative in terms of, I'm born, I live, I have all these moments, and then I die.
Right.
It's these 2 points, one of which is fixed, birth, because we've done it, we've observed it, it's fixed it, and one we haven't observed yet, which is death. So that's movable.
Right.
And where you move your death adventure to changes the hologram, changes the moment. And the moment you start to think of that, particularly in treatment, when you're working with a KRT treatment, the shifts are just completely and utterly unfettered by any restraints. They
Right.
just get completely liberated because you can go anywhere just by moving that one temporal experience.
Right. Right. It is so profound in my experiences, not just in self-treatments, but observing others experience that shift. You just recognize how much more you are from a whole perspective.
And then I love when we sort of go from the holographic awareness of holo KRT into VKRT
Mhm.
and take that even a step further. We do something similar in PsyQ, where there's the experience of what a lot of people would call ghosts.
Mhm.
And it's essentially, in terms of PsyQ, the way we look at it is that it's not something from the past, it's something that you're experiencing right now in this
Mhm.
moment, but
Mhm.
you're seeing through the temporal experience. So that moment is playing in that moment that you're in it,
Mhm.
but you're seeing it as something from the past. In PsyQ, that has a real paranormal slant, as so much in
Mhm.
PsyQ
Mhm.
does. In KRT, we can bring that right back into our own experiences and the experiences of ancestry. So,
Mhm.
literally communicating with those who came before us in that moment as part of an ancestral heritage
Right.
that we have been given. And whilst our heritage, our ancestry is fixed, when we understand and when we start to look in a Viridian perspective, we understand that everything is a multiverse and everything within the universe is multidimensional. All
Mhm.
realities exist.
Mhm.
So anything that can exist does. And so therefore we can see other iterations of ourselves and other ancestries and
Mhm.
heritages that haven't yet taken place because they're taking place now.
Right.
So we can then interact with those and change the narrative or experience for other versions of ourselves.
Yeah, very trippy, huh?
It is very trippy, isn't it? Yeah. Because the wonderful thing is that there is a concept in VM that our V state self is knowledgeable of all of our realities.
Right.
And so when we start affecting change, beneficial change and benevolent change for our alternate selves, and they start doing it back, our viridian self, our V state, is aware of this, and we can start making changes in the future
Absolutely.
based on those other selves that are currently in the future, in them this moment.
Right. Right. That's when I put my hands to my head and just go. But I say it with a smile. Again, this is not a flip of the switch. This is immersion and practice. And the more you experience these things, the more they create a repatterning. So that the more you're progressing, or what feels like a progression forward, you're actually just reinforcing what is.
Absolutely. It's such an indoctrination into one way of just seeing the world through a lens of normality, should we call it. That is the way things are. If you say any different to that, then there's something very peculiar about you, because of course that's the way it is. Of course we are born and there's this. However, a lot of the cutting edge scientific study is understanding that our perception of time is not really what's going on. And it started, all the way back with relativity and the understanding that perception of time is different depending on your circumstances, and it can change. It is relative. But taking that and beyond that, science does not see time as the human experience of time. Now, that's not to say that what we are doing in KRT has been extensively scientifically researched, but just taking that scientific understanding of multiple realities, the behavior of photons, for example, and then applying that logic to our experience with KRT, we suddenly have a new philosophy to work for, and it undermines and picks away at that indoctrination of linear time, and it lifts a veil.
Right.
So we can use the science as an indicator, as a methodology or a philosophy, but when we actually come to treatment, we can just set that aside and view ourselves and our clients through this very different lens and this very different experience. And the moment you become disassociated with linear time, the other way of seeing it becomes the most natural thing in the world.
Right. Right. And it doesn't take much effort to just simply say to yourself, what if? Then sometimes you just want to run with it, because the experience is phenomenal. I know I keep saying liberating and freedom, but it's a shedding. You literally shed away what was, and you're forever changed. Even if your logical brain may say, well, yeah, but I was this way or I was that way, it doesn't matter, because you are forever changed.
Yes.
That even if it's a little baby step forward. And I think it's important to take into account everything from a science perspective, from a spiritual perspective. It's not a right or wrong kind of thing. It's like the beginning stages of taking into account that the universe is infinite. If you exclude things because of whatever, you're excluding part of the universe. And what we're saying is everything is included.
Absolutely, yes.
And so you take all those bits and pieces and work with them.
Yes.
However, and everyone's different. So what you may find inspirational from one perspective, I may not find as much value to it for the now that I'm in.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not part of, because everything is part of.
Yes. And that's what I love about the different layers of KRT. Essentially, there are 5 layers of KRT, starting with Karmic Reiki, which is the original form of KRT,
Mm-hmm.
leveraging the experience of Reiki to power a past life experience and treatment. That very quickly moves into the first layer of Karmic Regression Therapy, which is very traditional. And the philosophy of it is based on an ancient tradition of the karmic realms
Right.
and how we can exist in moment to moment in different realms. And our behavior and experiences are indicative of the realm we're in at that particular moment.
Right.
Then, when we transition, we go to another traditional methodology, which is that of miasma and the miasmatic experience.
Right.
So that's a little bit more modern, but still a tradition stemming back to sort of the 1700s. And then as we move on, we go to holographic, which is, again, it's a little bit retro. The concept of holography is very 20th century.
Right.
There was a lot of advancement in holography in the 20th century, but it's where we begin to get that ethos and that philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into VKRT, which is much more based on a quantum philosophy of science. And again, they are used as philosophies, and we have equivalents in KRT as opposed to direct analogies from one to another.
Mm-hmm.
But the wonderful thing is that you can pick and choose. You can stay very traditional in terms of karmic realms, or you can go all the way to the other end and be sort of multiverse, non-time specific Viridian experience with it.
Or you can mix it up.
Or you can mix it up. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's kind of like, well, you go into your pantry and you have ABC ingredients, and so you can do whatever with that quite magically. I like a bigger pantry. I like having it chock full so that at any given moment I can reach into that pantry and say, okay, this is exactly what I need because this is what I want right now.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes.
It's not one superseding the other. It adds value. Again, nothing is omitted.
No, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, very often when there's a lot of choice, people refer to it as a box of chocolates, which I know, Linda, you would be particularly partial of.
Yes.
But really, it's not a box of chocolates. You're not selecting one or another or several in a row. When we look at the Viridian methodology and philosophy, this idea of our sphere of consciousness, and as we expand that sphere, that Viridian layer is right on the outside of that experience.
Right.
So we're constantly expanding our conscious awareness into the unknown. But as we do that, everything that we have known is fixed inside the sphere. And it's only we only change that by expanding the sphere more. However, what that means is that the closest thing to our core is the experience of the karmic realms. It sits very close to us and it's very understandable. We can relate to it much easier because it is so close to our core beliefs, our tribal beliefs in many ways.
Right.
But as you go through the layers of KRT, it's an extension of conscious awareness to the point that when we get right to the edge, that's where VKRT is. It's right at the limits of our understanding. But that doesn't mean to say that it is like a box of chocolates and you're choosing one or the other. They're all there constantly.
Right.
It's where you're paying conscious awareness to that is important.
Right.
So when you work with KRT, you're bringing in all 5 layers. All 5 layers are active, but you're consciously filtering all 5 through any particular time.
Right. It's amazing. It really is. It is. I always stop myself because it just popped into my head. It's one of my favorites. That's not true. They're all my favorites. But
it's whatever one you're with at the moment. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You become so engaged in it. And that too is part of the process. of your expansion.
Absolutely.
You know, whatever you are most attracted to at that moment is exactly what you need to be able to propel and push that bubble further.
And in so many ways, when we are experiencing anything that is temporally specific, whether that be aging, life experience, time management, any of these sort of temporally related experiences, they all sort of come back to the KRT experience. That's the modality of one therapy that is really at the forefront of our time experience.
Right.
So whereas the other modalities have specialities in other areas, Celtic Reiki is communication, for example, and how we relate to our fellow human beings and the world around us. When it comes to time, KRT is the modality that is there up front and center.
Right.
And that's what I love as well, you know. So when we work in the realms of KRT, which are very different to the other realms that we work with, and we start in Little Nose, which is one of the three nodes of Thrice Denied, Roman Nose being one of the others. But we venture to the harbour, and the harbour is the discrete realm that sits between the Lonely Road, Little Nose, and the Lonely Road, and the oceanic realm. We talked about this last time, the idea that the Lonely Road, when it interacts with the woodland realm, we have the meadows. When the Lonely Road interacts with the mountain range, we have the river realm. And when it interacts with the ocean, we have the harbour.
I love it. In my mind's eye, I'm just seeing these places that I visited and visit and sometimes stay in.
It is the wonderful thing how there is this whole parallel experience of life that goes on,
Oh,
which is very, very
absolutely.
different to the reality of a lot of people and
Right,
the reality that they live every single day.
right,
But
right.
I love that sprawling adventure that happens as you walk this journey in this parallel reality. It creates this epic experience where you never quite know what's going to happen next.
Right.
But when you start to make connections in it and you start to bring it all together, it's vast. It's so complex and so multi-layered and multifaceted that it just becomes this lifelong companion experience that is quite
Absolutely.
remarkable.
Absolutely. And the enjoyment of it, in regardless of what's going on, it is not about being the happy, sparkly, no offense to anyone, but love and light kind of thing. It's not that.
Yeah.
It can be. Again, that's omitting all the other values that are out there that make your journey so spectacular.
Absolutely.
You can't focus on one thing for too long because that's when it becomes fixed. That's when it becomes rigid.
Absolutely.
And that's the joy of this journey, is to be able to, with childlike wonder, and I'm not saying, childish, I'm saying childlike. You could be 100 years old and still have childlike wonder.
Absolutely.
And be in awe of what's next.
It's extraordinary when we look at the reality of the world, and we have this sort of sense of touching on the sort of esoteric viewpoint that you mentioned there, and we have this sense of sort of skeptics, people who are very skeptical, and people who are believers, and they're very open to any new concepts that come their way. I've always found it really interesting how, as the skeptics and the believers walk in their different directions, they both end up in the same place, which is a place of dogma. And that, for me, is very important to understand in terms of one therapy, is we keep ourselves at the center. We're not walking off towards dogma at any point.
Right.
None of this is fixed. None of it is set in stone and static. It's constantly moving, constantly fluid. So we're not looking to prove anything scientifically, because that is the bastion of science.
Right.
We're not looking to say that this is the way it is and these are the things that you must believe in,
Right.
because that's the bastion of religious dogma.
Right.
And so what we do is we hold ourselves in the center and we filter our experiences through different philosophies, understanding that each and every individual person will have their own experience of that.
Right.
And that human experience is what is important.
Right.
No right, no wrong,
No.
just the human experience.
Right. Right. And the value is amazing. Thinking about in terms of the rigidity of being set one way or the other, release yourself from that. Think of all the times when you encounter something new and you're fascinated by it, regardless of what the topic is. You're fascinated by it and you just want to learn all you can about it so that you can apply it. But once you arrive at, I've gained the top knowledge of what that is, here's the difference. That's not the end of the journey.
It's that philosophical alchemy that happens where the different philosophies can mingle, and how we can use analogues of a philosophy and apply it to our experience with some form of energetic experience, such as Reiki. And when we do that, the experience of Reiki mirrors the philosophy that we have applied to it. Again, hand positions. Sui Reiki uses hand positions in a lot of treatment styles, 3 minutes apiece in a set pattern. That's one form of treatment. Apply a different philosophy to a treatment, a multi-dimensional, multifaceted, experiential environment with different avatars within and different modalities of perspective within. And there's another form of treatment. And whatever works for you. If you feel confident using hand positions, and that ensures that you have an empowering treatment methodology, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
If you want something more than that, something different to that, then here is another, and another, and another, and another.
Right.
And I think for me personally, the experience of walking or navigating through an experiential form of treatment is much more powerful for me personally. And for the One Therapy community, that's why they've chosen to work with those modalities, because it is a powerful experience. But some people don't want that. They just want the hand positions because it really works for them.
Yep.
And the most important thing there, which sort of brings us full circle really in our conversation today, which is this rigidity that tends to happen. There's a lot of it in various different communities, whether they be religious communities or scientific communities, the Reiki modality community, a sort of a certain sense or a certain degree of dogma in all of these communities. And it's not the rigidity of dogma, it's the flexibility of being in the moment and responding within the moment to the stimuli that is around us.
Right. And for a lot, that's scary to think in terms of, oh, you're telling me I need to shoot from the hip. No, not at all. Not at all. Just let go of the rigidity that it has to be a specific way or at a specific time. It's letting go of those boundaries, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's very interesting how I'm asked a lot if I can provide bullet points or concise, practical information about something. And the challenge is that a lot of the experiences within the realms of One Therapy is about personal human experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can't provide that in a bullet point list for somebody else because it's their experience.
Right.
And this is such a challenge for a lot of people. But why can't you give me a bullet point list and tell me what to do?
Yeah.
Because you have to do it and have the experience,
Right.
and then you will have the knowledge behind that. There are no bullet points that can be given to somebody else about their own experience.
No.
And it is an extraordinary how indoctrinated we are to
Absolutely.
that conciseness of information
Structure.
and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Even to the point where I've worked with people in the past where I literally say to them, go through the experience, start it with this series of steps, and then once you've done that, just say out loud what you are experiencing.
Yes.
And they don't say anything. And it's like, but what are you experiencing? I'm experiencing nothing. If you're experiencing nothing, then you're literally a consciousness in a vacuum.
Yes.
Our body is constantly giving us signals.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be, oh, I'm feeling a bit of heat. I've got an itch above my left eye. Oh, I'm feeling my lungs expand as I breathe in. Oh, I'm hearing this sound. And it can be very sort of physical world things.
Mm-hmm.
But because there is this very narrow perspective of this is what I'm supposed to
Yes.
in Air Bunnies, this is what I'm supposed to feel or think or experience, they don't want to say it because it's like, I'm not experiencing that thing that I'm supposed to, so I'm not going to say anything because I'll look foolish. But the act of just saying whatever you're experiencing, I feel a bit hungry, or I feel a bit thirsty, or I'm a bit tired, or I feel a bit swayy. I'm swaying from side to side.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just the fact of saying it, it demonstrates you're paying attention to the experiences of your body.
Right.
That is the gateway into the experience of the modality.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the initial practicing of self-awareness that we are all taught to ignore because of the rigid expectations of do this, and whatever. So regardless if it's your stomach gurgling, that's self-awareness. And it sounds maybe not important, but the more you practice your self-awareness of how you're interacting with seen and unseen, you are better equipped to navigate.
Absolutely.
Because each experience is going to give you information.
Yes.
And whatever philosophy you're drawing from are basically tools to help you decipher what is this experience.
On a neurochemical layer of experience, our bodies are triggering neurochemicals all the time. And those neurochemicals give us the experiences that we have in life, particularly the emotional experiences that we have in life, how we feel within ourselves. And a lot of neurochemicals can counteract other neurochemicals. So if you've got one neurochemical and your body wants to stop that, you produce another neurochemical that basically counteracts it. That's why very often after someone has done a very rigorous, strenuous workout, they feel that rush of pleasure. The endorphins or the enkephalin has sort of come to the forefront to basically counteract the stress hormones the exercise has triggered. The thing that we don't have the ability to do is to turn them off, to stop them being triggered. If they don't trigger, we can keep that. So for example, if you sort of are ensuring that you keep calm and don't get stressed, then you can stop that from triggering in the first place. But once it's triggered, it doesn't turn off. It doesn't sort of stop. It's on, and it's over time that sort of levels out and just sort of stops. And this is the extraordinary thing that we find, that we're constantly looking to create an experience of the world where we are lowering the stress. That stress is petering out over time, and we are increasing the experience of well-being. So when you're in that moment and you're monitoring your body and the room and everything around you and just saying what you feel, if you notice that you're holding tension in a part of your body, that some of your muscles are really tense and locked into place, you are then paying conscious attention to those, and you can be working with relaxing those muscles. And
Right.
to such a point that even though they may not release immediately, over time they will release. And
Right.
then the way that you're holding your body with less tension in it will create less stress. And then that will open the gateways to the more pleasurable well-being neurochemicals.
Right.
So even then, just saying things out aloud, people are thinking, oh, no, I should be seeing a 12-foot phantom in front of me. No,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just, where are you holding your stress in your body?
Right. Again, it's self-awareness.
Mm.
You know, it's you're gonna laugh, but a couple of years ago I went for a general health check, and my blood pressure was through the roof. You know, part of it was just the white coat syndrome and what have you, but
Absolutely.
you know, I didn't like the numbers at all, and I thought, okay, this is not right. I should be this because I do this, you know, all that crazy like thinking. What I decided to do was be more self-aware. Like, what's happening here? Why is this so? And I ended up getting an at-home monitor. And funny, I started recognizing a pattern. I would have very normal blood pressure. What was my state of mind? It was very even keeled in spite of what was going on. But it took a while for me to understand that it's that self-awareness, because if I was angry, that blood pressure went through the roof.
Yeah,
But and
absolutely.
and so I recognized then that if I would not have changed my my perspective or my awareness of what I was doing in internal way, it could have turned into a lifelong problem. It still happens, but it doesn't stick. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't stay. It was quite important from a one therapy perspective for me, because I could see how repatterning isn't just about how I do things or what I do. It's everything. It's what
Absolutely.
you do, it's what you say, it's what you think,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how you interact with that.
You've just triggered a thought about viridia lingua and phagic
Mm.
repatterning. They're just like completely off the chart. But yeah, the idea of when we have conversation around these different elements, they are all intrinsically phagically repatterning
Yes.
the way that we think. And when you do that, it counteracts and literally sort of takes away the old dogma
Mm-hmm.
that we have ingrained. And so the idea of how you can completely renew how you see yourself in a very different
Mm-hmm.
way, and your experience of the world phagically repatterns the old dogma so that it no longer is there to tie you down.
Right.
It's why people who are terrified of haunted houses and things that go bump in the night can go through the experience of PsyQ, for example, and come out the other end a really confident warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing phases them.
Mm-hmm.
They're so there and they're so confident in those environments
Mm-hmm.
because the phagic repatterning that happens through viridia lingua
Right.
is constantly repatterning the old dogma.
Right.
This is the wonder of our experiences. When we are repatterning the accepted norms within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we find our own way of navigating, and we suddenly fully embody ourselves and engage with our lives.
Right. Right. And you know, this is the benefit and importance of keeping your journey fluid,
Mhm.
because the more
Absolutely.
you understand, notice I didn't say the more you know, the more you understand, these all play a part, these bits and pieces all play a part with the repatterning.
Mm.
and recognizing your full potential in that moment.
Well, that was a bit of an epic journey, which is
Yes.
sort of understandable, really, seeing as we've traveled the Northern Ocean and gone up to the Northern lands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very different than where we've gone before, but equally as captivating.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the Northern Lights, so the aurora are always very pretty to see.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
When shall we meet again? I'm thinking I would really love some more haunted house.
Oh, for sure. Sign me up.
Right.
Sign me up and let's go.
Well, it was lovely seeing you again today, Linda.
Lovely seeing you as well.
And until next time.
Until next time.
Be enchanted.
You have been listening to the It's Reiki But Not As You Know It podcast, hosted by Martin Pentecost, originator of One Therapy, and Linda Hadzinski, guide and companion to the One Therapy community. Find out more and join in the conversation at onetherapy.com, one-therapy.com. It's Reiki, but not as you know it.